Good afternoon and happy Rose Bowl day here at the Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com. We got your pregame primer here with the coach's view. Going to talk a little bit about this Rose Bowl game today as the Hoosiers take on the number 9 seed Alabama Crimson Tide in what should be a dandy of a football game out in Pasadena. Indiana right now has put themselves in a position to be one of the favorites, if not the favorite, now that Ohio State has been knocked out. And a recurring theme is happening right now. These teams that had the layoff have not performed up to par quite as well as one would hope, as Texas Tech is getting beat by Oregon 6-0, and Oregon is driving once again against Texas Tech, who only has 90 yards on the day. And that's a team that is a offensive juggernaut. So hopefully the slow starts will not impact Indiana today out in Pasadena. It has rained all morning long, and it has not been a great day thus far. I do believe the rain has stopped. They have the tarp off the field and doing some maintenance to it right now. But for Indiana, this moment didn't just happen. It was built rep by rep, week by week, practice by practice. And for Alabama, they're in familiar territory, a program that understands what it takes to survive and advance on this stage. And today we are going to strip this game down and to what actually matters, not the brand names, not the helmet logos, just good old-fashioned football. From the coach's chair, let's get into this Rose Bowl matchup as we get started in here today. Let's first talk about this Indiana Hoosier team in that respects, and how this Hoosier team got to where they are right now in this respects is that Indiana put in a tremendous year, 13-0, Big Ten title champions, as well as a Heisman winner, a Coach of the Year winner, and a lot of different accolades this team has received throughout the last few weeks, now gets put all to bed. And we appreciate you guys that are joining us now here on the pregame primer for the Rose Bowl. This Indiana team just did not stumble into the number 1 ranking either. This is a team that for each and every week that they were tested on the 3-game window where they had to play Illinois, Iowa, and Oregon, 2 out of those 3 on the road, and found impressive ways to win at both Iowa and Oregon, it was becoming apparent that this team had all the makings to become a top-ranked football team. And even with injuries, this team has faced many different parts of the year where injuries have impacted their starting lineup. No more than today is it going to impact the defensive line without Stephen Daly, who was one of their best pressure guys, was lost after the Big Ten championship game in that freak accident that I still shake my head about quite a bit with all this. But one thing this Indiana team has always done, next man up. These coaches have always prepared the next man to be in a position ready to go. That's like I always said when I coach quarterbacks, you may be the second team or third string, but realize if you're a second teamer, you're a play away. If you're a third teamer, you're 2 plays away from being the guy. And if you do not prepare yourself for when that opportunity strikes, you're not just going to let yourself down. You're going to let the team down because of you're not being in a position to prepare yourself thinking that you're going to play. And that's one thing this coaching staff has done quite well with all their players, in the mindset of being in a position that they are going to be called upon at some point in time during the season. Nobody knows when or where, and they have to be ready to prepare for this game. I want to just give some shout outs here. Jason, appreciate you coming in today. You're talking to a very technological nerd in the sense of putting people on the air. So I'd probably put us off the air. Robert, glad to see you on board. New Life, I appreciate you being here today. as well as some others that have trickled in the room as well. But if you have a question or comment, by all means, please put it up on the in the messages, and we'll try to get it answered as we go through this here a little bit on this pregame primer for the Rose Bowl. It's been a interesting couple days, and if you're a football nut like I am, it's been heaven in some respects with all the games going on. We had three big ones yesterday. Of course, the Ohio State Miami game on last night. Boy, I don't know if there's a better team right now playing outside of our own Indiana Hoosiers is the Miami Hurricanes. They are playing really good football. They seem to be peaking at the right time. They were very opportunistic last night against Ohio State, and two key components that cost Ohio State that game. And we talked about razor thin margins of error. You have the pick six that goes all the way back for a touchdown on the screen, very similar to Pons's interception against Washington a year ago, where he picked that bubble screen off. Same thing happened to Sand last night. And then Ohio State missing that field goal attempt right before halftime, something that Indiana has done 11 out of 13 times, is score before half. Ohio State, had they hit that field goal, I do believe it's a totally different second half. And if they had not, even given up the pick six, but unfortunately they missed that field goal. And that in itself was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back when you look back at it, because after that, they just never regained any type of momentum. And as soon as they did, Miami came back and crushed it. So good. I mean, congratulations to the Hurricanes. They're playing really good football right now. But one thing that this Indiana team's done all year has been very disciplined, very connected. They understand situational football. They play complementary football quite a bit, and they do it quite well. It's one of those things that I think that they pride themselves on in that respect. And the other thing that Indiana does well is they do the little things well. And that's one thing that I think you have to sit and say why Indiana does so well is that they win the first down battle with efficiency. They get off the field on third downs as their defense is one of the best, if not the best, in third down conversions. And they protect the football. Those are all things that lead to winning football. And Indiana's done it all quite well. And if you watch the game day this morning, you kind of could tell that even in some respect, Nick Saban's tune has really changed on Indiana in terms of the respect that they've earned from him. And that in itself is going to be something that, you didn't see early on in the year about Indiana, especially when Nick Saban was talking about them. But the fact that he watched them play Ohio State, the physicality that they played with on defense has essentially won them over in that regard. But irregardless, Indiana is one thing that they've done well. They've not beaten themselves, especially defensively, giving up cheap scores and things of that magnitude. And offensively, they play within their structure. That's the one key thing for today with Fernando. And I know that he's worked with a sports psychologist over the last few weeks about not putting too much pressure on himself now that he's a Heisman winner and thinking that now he has to go perform at this extraordinary level. He has to be one of 11 out on the field offensively, do his job within the structure of the offense. And if he can do that, he'll do quite fine. But he cannot put himself in a situation where he's pressing. And we've seen him when he's done that. He did that earlier on in the year where he was pressing quite a bit, especially against those first two games of the season, and he wasn't playing all that well. So today, play within the framework, do the things that you're expected to do, nothing more, nothing less, and trust the system. And I think that's one thing that they do. This is a team that's faced adversity. These are all the things that have gone into Indiana's season this year, and they've been able to answer the challenge each and every week. Even when adversity punched them in the nose, they were able to step up and make the plays when they needed to make them. And that's why they're 13-0 and the number one ranked team in the country. But having these few weeks off, again, has been a good and bad in the sense that you've been able to get some guys rested. and get them back into more of a healing mode. But now it's going to be about the preparation. And I do think if there's one coach that understands that very well is Signetti and how he structures things. I think he's a very dynamic in the way he thinks and processes what has to be done and how to prepare a team for these type of weeks off. And that's one thing that I think has been a concern of his. And I think he's been able to address it with his time off and getting the guys back in the right framework and the frame of mind. And I don't think they will use any excuse of this being too much time off for this game. Now you look over at the other side of the ball to the Alabama Crimson Tide, and there's one thing about this team. You must respect Alabama and what they've done, not just for this past season, but their entire decade or so, where they've been the perennial top of the college football world. You respect that, but you do not be intimidated by it. And I don't think that's Indiana. I think Kurt Signetti had a great answer in a presser this week when a reporter asked him about the mystique of Alabama and whether or not the players fully understood that and things of that nature. And basically what he said was, no, you probably know more about their mystique than the players do. All they know is what they see on tape. And I thought that was a great answer for that, is that, look, we respect them. We know they're a good football team, but by no means are we intimidated by Alabama's success. And I think that's what he was trying to get apart through that in that respect. So that's one thing with Alabama, respect it and, do all the things that, you have to do in that regard from that. With Alabama, you got to think as well, excuse me, here as I get to my next slide, is that the thing that you got to be very clear with is you cannot dismiss them. You can't look at them and not respect the work that they've put in to get here, especially with what they did at Oklahoma. You have to respect the fact that they are a team that has as much chip on their shoulder now that they're not the darlings of college football, and Indiana is. So that's one thing that Indiana has to understand today. They have a very talented roster. They're physical, they're explosive, and they're well coached. I mean, we know Kellen DeBoer, we know Kane Womack, we know Nick Sheridan, and some of the guys that were here at Indiana at one time that are now at Alabama. They're good football coaches because we saw it firsthand when they were at Indiana and be able to do what they did here. And for the most part, they won their fair share here. They just weren't able to continue it like Signetti has. So you gotta understand that Kellen DeBoer is a very, very good coach. He's a very good offensive-minded coach. I don't necessarily think there is a dominant as an Alabama team that we've seen in the past. If I had to equate to what they are in some respects, especially defensively, they're in the world of the Ohio States and maybe the Iowas defensively. They're very stout up front. They got a good front four. They got the Overton kid back. He's at 100%. So that adds some physicality into their lineup, especially up front. And they've got good lengthy DBs that can cover and also play in the box. Now, when you look at Alabama's offense, they're not as good as they may have had been in years past. Ty Simpson's a hell of a quarterback. He's a great field general. He gets the ball in and out of his hands quickly. He's only thrown like 5 interceptions on the year, so he does well with the football in his hands. But Indiana is going to have to make sure, one, they continue to shut down the run, and this Alabama team has struggled to run the football, make Alabama play with their left hand and put pressure on Ty Simpson, and also make sure that you're getting coverage on guys because they got guys that can explode and go the distance. And that's one thing that Indiana is going to have to be aware of in all that. They got to be aggressive on defense. And they also have to make sure that they're aware of their playmakers offensively. If I'm Indiana on offense against this defense, I make sure that I'm going right at them. I'm going right downhill at them with him being black. I'm not looking to try to run around them. I'm going right through them. I'm being physical as much as I can to get the offensive line in the mindset that we're going to go out and have success running the football and do it with success. And then we're going to do some things with the passing game to get the ball into our playmakers' hands, whether it be Surratt, Cooper, EJ Williams, or Charlie Becker. And the other thing I'm doing, I'm throwing the ball downfield. I'm going to take a shot within the first 10 plays of this game. I'm going to take a shot and go after him in the first 10 plays of the game so that we can let them know that we're here to play. We're not here to play conservative. We're not here to try to do this and that. We're here to win, and we're going to win it by being physical, and we're going to take it to you and not hold back in your mindset of trying to not make mistakes. You know, you keep it simple, but you be attacking with that in that respects. But you respect Alabama for what they are, but do not be intimidated by them whatsoever, one way or the other. It does come down to the trenches, and this is where we get into the matchups of this ball game. It does come down to the trenches in that respect, and we're going to look at some things here in a second. But when you look at this, the matchups in this ball game, you got to look first at Indiana's offensive line versus Alabama's defensive line in that respect. Happy New Year to you as well, everybody. Appreciate you being here as well. But this Indiana offensive line is healed up. According to Mike Shanahan, they are they're as good as they've been in 6-7 weeks when it comes to their health up front. And it's going to be a challenge against this Alabama front four, but they got to be able to go take it to them. They got to stay ahead of the chains, and they've got to make sure that they're in position in third downs, that they're not 3rd and 7 or more, but they got to be within that 3rd and medium, 3rd and short. That's going to be key in today's game, especially if the weather is iffy. Now, my last report was it had stopped raining. It's just overcast. The field is pretty good shape. They had it tarped, and they've been squeegeeing off quite a bit of rain on the sidelines and such. But tarps only do so much. That moisture can still get down through there. And the other thing is offensively, and as I said, it's going to be one of those things where you got to be aggressive with what you do. Absolutely. And it's kind of what I had said earlier, RB, was that within the first 10 plays of this game, I'm taking a shot down the field against this Alabama defense, and I'm running right at them, not around them. I'm going downhill with everything. And that's going to be the key component today, is this offensive line up front in this matchup when it comes to this defense of Alabama's. Now, if you look at the other side of the coin, you got to look at Indiana in some respects being in a situation defensively where, like I said earlier, force Alabama to play left-handed. Do not give them cheap scores. Do not give them cheap first downs. Don't allow them to have any signets of a running game. And in the passing game, let's get pressure on Ty Simpson. Let's keep him in the pocket. Let's stay in coverage if he breaks it. But more importantly, let's put him in uncomfortable situations, 3rd and long. That's going to be the key thing. Now, Alabama's offense, you can expect them to have a lot of motion today. You can expect them to have their condensed formations and their expanded formations, because they're going to want to see if that can rattle Indiana's structure, or whether it puts Indiana into some type of base check when they move bodies around. So expect to see that, I would say, frequently today from Ryan Grubbs in the Alabama offense, as well as a spread them out mentality. Now, one thing back to defense that seems to me, or it seems that the mindset of defenses, especially listen to Saban this morning, he anticipates Alabama playing a lot of man coverage against Indiana, not playing zone because they feel that that would put Mendoza in a position to pick them apart. That will be an interesting sentiment because, I do think Indiana's offense is geared for either or, and I think Fernando's done well against teams that want to play man or zone. So we'll see what happens there with this. When you look at the other thing with Indiana's defense is being disciplined in their structure. Communication in games like this is important. And we also have to have the mindset that you can't give this team chunk plays because that is when Bama gets rolling. When they get a chunk play, that's when they tendency to pick up the tempo. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see them pick the tempo up against Indiana today when you look at all that. And that is going to be the key component there. Now, when we go back and look at some of these statistics from these two teams, you can see here with Indiana offense versus Alabama's offense, you can kind of see the differentials. Indiana holds about a 10-point per game differential. I would say that in the rushing game, that is the big differential. If you look between Indiana and Alabama, it's running the football. And I do think that's got to be a big thing today for Indiana. They have to be able to rush the football. I'm thinking they need to rush for close to 200 yards. Alabama's given up about 120 on average. So that's 80 more yards than they're giving up. And I do think that's a doable goal for Indiana. Passing game, you can see Alabama holds a slight edge, and you would expect that because they don't run the ball. But you can see Alabama's total offense is only averaging 380 yards a game. I don't think they've broken 300 yards a game in the last couple games that they've played, including against Oklahoma. But as we know, they beat Oklahoma with the help of a pick six. And again, those are the type of things that get your ass beat. It got Ohio State beat and it got Oklahoma beat. When you throw pick sixes, you're going to get your ass beat. So that's what you have to make sure that you're playing good, solid football. And in Fernando's mindset, if it's not there, throw it away. Don't hold on to it. Get ball out of your hands and line up and play 2nd and 10. Don't line up playing 2nd and 18 or throwing a pick that goes back for 6. So that's another key component there. Alabama, okay. 4th down conversions there, 50% and 65% for Alabama. I do think you will see both these schools, if it's in reasonable distance today, go for it on 4th down, especially if the weather is a little bit soupy. I could see them going for it a little bit more in that respect. And then again, the big one for me in all this is points off of turnovers. Indiana's got 106 of them and 82 for Alabama. So Alabama's not been too bad when they've gotten turnovers. Indiana's been phenomenal in that respect. When you look at the defenses, again, Indiana has advantages on them in about every statistical category with the exception of pass defense. So you can see there that even Alabama's 3rd down conversions at 35% is pretty good when you consider that to Indiana's, who's far superior there. 4th down conversions, there's the big one, 70%. Alabama has not defended 4th down very well. Now, I summarize that's because you're seeing a lot of 4th and shorts, 1 or 2 yards. And that's what I mean. I wouldn't be surprised if Cignetti takes some calculated risk against this Alabama defense because of that right there. Red zone scores, you can see they're pretty equal. And then red zone touchdowns, Indiana has only given up 6 on the year. Alabama's given up 19. And then sacks. Indiana's a 9 sack advantage on this Alabama team. And then turnover margin. Indiana's a plus 17, while Alabama's a plus 8, and Indiana's the top team in the country on turnover margin. So again, today will be critical for them in that aspect of things. When you look at some of the top players again, you got to look at, like I said, Ty Simpson and what he's brought to the table overall is, as a player, really good in that respect. Um, when you think about it, he's a really good quarterback in terms of what he does and how he does it. Impressed with him. He's a coach's kid. He's got great command, but if you can get to him, he will make mistakes, and that's the thing for Indiana today. Ryan Williams is the wide receiver that you got to be aware of on the outside. He's a deep threat, but they will also target him in the running game with speed sweeps and things of that nature because of his speed. And that's the thing that Indiana has to be fully aware of when it comes to, um, um, the opportunities for those chunk plays. Williams is a big part of that aspect of it. Defensively, when you look at him, you've got Lawson, the linebacker. He's a really good player. Bray Hubbard is the safety who's really good. He's got 4 interceptions on the years, 3 forced fumbles. Overton's the guy that just came back. He is a big force for them as well. And then Pierre is the good kid you got to watch. He's the guy that leads them in sacks. He is a guy that has great length, and he is a guy that Indiana is going to have to be very cautious of on passing situations because he's a guy that can get it. He makes plays, and Indiana's going to have to be very worried about him in those situations. And then those are kind of some of the guys that are in that top category for this Alabama team when you think about them as a ball club in that respects. But again, Indiana's going to have to be aware of certain individuals in their game today in order for them to succeed, and they've got to be in a position to not only be aware of them but to excel against them. I know that Pierre's a great rusher. You're going to have to find ways to slow him down to help the offensive line. And you're going to have to find ways to contain Williams if he's on the outside or he's getting the ball on a handoff. When you look at the Rose Bowl, there's no question there's a bunch of energy there and pageantry. And that's one thing that Indiana is going to have to make sure that they're focused and locked in. And that's where Alabama may have an advantage because they've been there. They've played in these games. They've been a part of them. Some of these guys were there 2 years ago when they played Michigan and got beat, so they understand it. And Indiana's going to have to rely upon not their experience in that regard, but rely on their ways that they prepare for games in that respects. Emotional discipline. This is another one I think is very important in a game like this. Absolutely, you want them to be playing with fire. You want them to play with emotion, but you got to keep it in check. You can't afford dumb penalties. You can't afford unsportsmanlike penalties or critical penalties in situations. You got to have control of your emotions in a game like this because every little aspect of it can be a critical situation if you let your emotions take over. So Indiana's got to keep their emotions in check. Communication's another thing. Again, in a game like today, you got wet weather. Does that affect the communication system, especially with the coordinators to the designated guys that have the earpieces in? What is the backup for that? Communication on the sideline. Now, Indiana's played at the Rose Bowl. They understand the layout and things of that nature because they played UCLA there 2 years ago. But you got to make sure that your communication is on par. You haven't played for 3 weeks, and you got to make sure that you're still in sync with what needs to be communicated throughout the game, either that's play calling or situational substitutions here and there. So again, that's got to be something that Indiana addresses and has at the ready. Handling the moment. when you look at that aspect of it and you're playing in a game like this where there's a lot riding on this game to get to that next uh, game in the playoffs, you got to make sure that you do not let the moment be overwhelming in the sense that it just gets to the point where it controls your how you play. You become tight. You're uptight. You're not playing loose. You're thinking about too many things. You're doing things that you would normally not do in a big ball game. Now, Indiana's been in these games, and it's not to say that they haven't, but they've got to make sure that they keep everything in check and turns the thing into a situation where they can play within themselves and not put too much on them. Yeah, they did. And they still will. So I think Indiana's going to get some turnovers today, whether it be picks or strips on running plays and situations like that. But they got to be able to handle the moment in that respect, and that's going to be a key component of today when you talk about this ball game against Alabama. Um, Switching over here to getting over to some of the video of things that I think Bama does quite well. Try to get this up and running here as much as I can, and we'll show both O and D and things of that nature. Um, this is a team that does a lot of great things with stuff, but one thing that Georgia did a great job of, and Georgia will do a lot of things that Indiana will do here today, and that's restricting the hole. This is a great job by 27 when he reads the polar, he pins it down and squeezes the hole, and they're able to get in on the tackle there. So again, you're going to see Indiana doing a lot of this as well, and what they like to do with their gap control and stuff. Again, this is stuff you're going to see today, the trading, the switching. Here's a situation where it's 2nd and 8. They're moving bodies around, and this is a quarterback read. And it's an interesting dynamic because in a lot of ways, he's not reading here. This is true fake because they're blocking the end man. And this is a great play on the backside here. When that play looks right there, man, you got to think that's a big play ready to happen. But what Georgia does great is they don't let up on the backside. This is the backside end that's making this play, and he fights off and comes off and sticks him, and that's a great play by Georgia's defensive line. And here's a better look at it. A bare front. Indiana plays this quite a bit. And you're going to see what I'm talking about here because this is a pretty good play against this front. I mean, like I said, when you see that right there, that's a big hole. And you got a guy pulling. So you get to this point here, it looks good. And then all of a sudden, boop, guy closes it, and it actually goes for a loss. So again, Georgia did some great things against these guys. Now, again, here's another personnel thing. They go from a 2-back look where they got a tailback and tight end in the backfield because they're going to leave the tight end to block, just a different way of doing it, and go with a 3-by-1. And this is good protection. And if you give this kid time, he can rip it. Now, this is what I mean by making mistakes. They got a rat in here, and he's able to see the eyes of the quarterback late, number 4 here. And bad throw ends in a pick for Georgia, and that was a huge play because Georgia ends up scoring on that next series. But again, this is good protection. This is just a bad throw that gets tipped because number 4 is reading as a rat in this type of coverage. And Simpson has a tendency to stare guys down. You can kind of see it there. in that respect. That's one more play here, and they're going to switch over to what I think Indiana's got to do in this ball game. This is the quick screen to Williams where they use the formation to set it up. Again, you're going to see this today because they're going to try to find what gives Indiana into the quick plays that they can get two out in space and let him use his speed. And that's the thing that Indiana has to be very aware of against this Bama team, is that particular play where they're trying to get two out in space. Now, switching over to Indiana, and this is their game in the Big Ten Championship, and some plays that they're going to have to, continue to execute today with this offense. Again, this is taking a shot early. And this is the one that if he throws to Cooper and doesn't underthrow him, this is a touchdown. But he's late with the ball, and this is when Coop gets hurt. But you can see that should have been a touchdown. Fernando's late with the ball there. But again, I like the aggressiveness of the call because it was early in the game when they took a shot like that. So again, that's what I like. When you get the ball down here in the red zone, though, Indiana's got to put it in and not settle for point or for field goals. Now, this is a good decision in the sense that there's really nothing here because Alabama does a great job covering this. They're kind of playing a man under too deep, and you can kind of see the safety. They're switching it off there, and there's nobody there. So he kind of gets lucky here because he's throwing it to the under, and there's going to be two guys in him right there. It gets knocked down. But when you get the ball down here, if Indiana gets the ball in the red zone with any consistency today, they got to score points. Field goals does them no good. It helps them, but it does them no good in a game where you're going to have to score points against this Bama defense. And they're just as tough in that area of the field. Again, I think this is another thing that Indiana's got to do today. They got to use Fernando's legs. Somehow, some way, they got to use his ability, whether it's run the zone read, whether it's running quarterback draw like that, or other ways, bootlegs, whatever. Use his speed and his legs to help them in the run game and with respects. And then, again, this is a great formational play where they go counter and they get the big play to Kalon Black. Again, good blocking along the line of scrimmage, and out the back he goes for a big play down the field. And when you get those type of plays today, you've got to be able to finish them off. Here's another point in the game where Indiana, it's third and short. This is the throw to Becker. I like the aggressiveness here. Go ahead and run drop back pass. Good blitz pickup here by Hemby. They're they're kind of bringing a zone pressure to a degree here. Hemby picks it up. Great read by Fernando. He hits Charlie beat down the middle. And then that same series, another one. Let's find ways to target Becker, find ways to target Surratt, Cooper, all those guys in the passing game. This is one where he throws a great one-on-one 50-50 ball. I'll take that matchup against anybody with Surratt. Those are some of the things that Indiana's got to do well against this Alabama team today if they want a chance to win in that respect. So, again, they've got to play really good, solid football for 4 quarters today. And if they can do that, then I do think, they're going to come away with a chance to win. Going back over some of these goals that I showed earlier in the week and just trying to kind of say it again, stay on schedule. If they can use the RPO game today, that's awesome. It's something that they haven't been able to do quite as much of late. They got to get those 3 targeted, big pass plays to Surratt, Cooper, or Becker. Run game, 200 yards, pass game, 265, and about a 95% red zone efficiency. Defense, get Bama off schedule, get off the field on third downs, get at least 2 takeaways. Don't give up the big plays. Know where Williams is at all times and get pressure on Simpson, and do not let him escape the pocket, because he does that and he does it well. He's a guy that averages about 76 yards rushing a game, and he's a part of their rush offense because they're not very good running the ball. So they have to utilize him in that respect. Then you switch it over to special teams. This is the thing that Indiana's done great all year: win the field position battle. They have forced opponent offenses to drive the long field, and they've set up their offense to drive a short field. They got to do that today, especially if it's inclement weather. The other thing they have to do is, if they can score or set up a score in the kicking game, that is icing on the cake. Got to have 100% on your 40-yard in field goals and all PAT attempts. And then, of course, do not give up any big plays in the kicking game. That's a pivotal thing. Oregon's had about 2 or 3 today against Texas Tech, and those are the killers when you give up big plays, when your offense and defense is on the sideline. It is a backbreaker in that respect. So if Indiana can play disciplined football, contain their emotions, play with discipline, look at it as they have all year, one play at a time, 6 seconds of play. Every play has a life in itself. All these SIGisms that are out there, be where your feet are. Those are the mindset that they got to have coming into this game, being 3 weeks off. And I don't think they're going to have the sluggishness that some of these teams have had of date, especially with Indiana having the opportunity to play a later ball game today at 4 o'clock. I do think they'll be ready to play, but they got to understand that Alabama is a legit elite team. You respect it, but you're not intimidated by it. And if I'm Shanahan, I'm going right at them from the word go. I'm going to take a shot within the first 10 plays, and I'm going to let my playmakers go make plays. So that should get you ready to watch this game today here in about an hour and 15 minutes or so. We wish you all a happy new year, and thanks for coming by and stopping by the Coach's Pregame Primer here on Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com. Irregardless, we'll have a complete wrap-up of today's game on Monday evening to give you a lowdown of everything that has happened today at the Rose Bowl, good, bad, or indifferent, and get us ready for whatever is next for Indiana and the Hoosiers. And hopefully we'll get all that. Let's see, any questions? Well, I appreciate that, RB. I hope that that gets its way to the Indiana dressing room, which I'm sure in some way or the other it will. And Indiana, I'm sure we'll have every I dotted and T's crossed before today's game. Enjoy the game today, everybody. We'll see you on Monday to give you a full recap of everything that happens today at the Rose Bowl. Until Monday, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. You've been watching a special Hoosier Tailgate Rose Bowl pregame primer right here on thehoosier.com.